Hi folks, welcome back to EDU 380 and to Module 2. In Module 1, we went over the backward design. We went over the backward design unit planning template. And remember, the unit is the plan is the big vision for the whole unit. But within this unit, there will be individual lessons. And this is the template that I will ask you to use to plan those lessons. Okay? This also uses backward planning. And many parts of this you will find in the unit plan. So backward planning doesn't just stop at the unit. We do backward planning for our lesson plans as well. So this has several components to it. It looks fairly easy. I mean, it's not onerous at all, and I'm going to walk you through it. I've also given you an example, so you can look at that as well, and explanations are in red. So if we look at the content standards are Common Core State Standards, Next Gen Science, and Main Learning Results. The technology standards go down here. So this, just ignore this one right here because you're going to put the appropriate technology standards down here. You're going to, in this chart in the left-hand column, list the number of the objective with which each standard aligns. Okay, so this comes from this chart down here. So just like you did with your unit plan, you looked at the standard and then you created learning outcomes from that standard, procedural and declarative knowledge. So what's the declarative and procedural knowledge you want students to take from this particular lesson? Not the whole thing, this particular lesson. Write that outcome there, okay, and give it a number. And then up here, align that number to a standard, okay? So if you have, two objectives down here, you're going to have objective 1 and objective 2, and then that's going to line up with the Common Core State Standard, Next Gen, or Main Learning Results Standard, okay, that's being addressed. And you can use your unit plan to help you with this because you don't want to have any standards in here that aren't part of your unit plan. Essential question, this may come from your unit plan or it may not. Okay, this is a big overarching concept that underpins what you want students to know. These have lots of different answers. There's no, you can't in one single answer this question. It's just a guiding question for you as you go into this lesson. Technology integration, here is where you're going to describe the technology you're going to use in this lesson. If you're going to use technology, there may be some lessons where you don't use technology. But we know that there are several things I'm asking you to create lesson plans for. So if this is a lesson plan for digital storytelling, you'd write in here, this is digital storytelling. What technology you're going to use, this will be what platform that you're using, how you're going to model it, how you're going to ask students to use it. So a brief summary of the technology integration here. This only needs to be a summary. If you're going to be using an independent tutorial or link that's already existing, provide the link here. And that's perfectly okay to do, just like I do with you. I provide you with tutorials from other places. I don't reinvent the wheel for every single thing, and neither do you. Just make sure that videos that you use are appropriate for the age level and grade level of your prospective students. I've already gone over what this little chart is here, but I didn't look at the assessment. So what kind of an assessment are you going to have to know whether students met this learning outcome or not? And it doesn't have to be a summative one. It could be, but for this particular lesson, it might be a formative assessment, okay? So if this is a lesson plan for the digital storytelling, I'm going to go back up here and say it's going to take me 4 days, okay, to teach this, because I'm going to need a day to introduce it, introduce the content of what it should be, how students are going to go about constructing that content. I'm going to have a day of teaching them to use the platform, then maybe another day of working with that platform, or even before that, a day of workshopping their storyboards and their ideas for the digital story. It might be a day of selecting music if they're using music. It might be a day of selecting images, and then a day of working, maybe even 2 days of working with the platform to create this digital storytelling. So down here, I may have, a formative assessment for understanding if they're understanding the content that I'm asking them to put into this digital story. I may have another formative assessment so I know whether they understand how to use the platform or not. So you have to think, broadly here, especially if you're doing a lesson plan that encompasses several days. Um, Necessary prior knowledge and skills. Okay, so here you have to think about what students already know and what they don't know about what's going on here. What do they have to know? Is there some vocabulary that you might have to teach them? And how will you do that? If they have not used, if you're using iPads, you might have to, and using an iPad application, you might have to show them how to navigate through an iPad. You may have to show them, various things. So think about the necessary prior knowledge that they will need in order to do this lesson. If you're doing a digital storytelling, which is my example here, have they had experience in creating storyboards? Okay, and what does a storyboard look like? So it may be that you have to have more of a lesson on that sort of thing. But you want to describe here what you want students to know prior to this lesson, and then describe how they will have learned that. You can sometimes write, that they learned this in the previous grade, but you never know for sure. But I mean, that's fine for this sort of hypothetical lesson plan here. But you really want to know if students know these things or not, okay? So if it's something they would have learned prior in your learning, in your classroom, you'll describe that students learned this particular piece in September during a unit on X. This is going to be the most involved part, is doing the instructional components, because you need to do detailed lesson plans here. You need to describe all the steps that you're doing and all the steps that students are doing, okay? This alignment to objectives, don't worry about that right now. Go back and fill that in later, okay? Some things will not align to objectives. Not every single thing you do in a classroom aligns to objectives, but we want to make sure that you're staying on target for the learning of what you want students to do or learn in this classroom. So you're going to have step-by-step instructions. There are 3 main stages. You're going to gain their attention, okay? So that's hooking them. Considering these questions, how will you introduce the lesson to the students? What's the introductory hook you're going to use? How are you going to hook them and motivate them and then keep them? How are you going to actually present the material? What actual instructional techniques are you going to use? What things are you going to ask students to do during the lesson? What will you be doing when students are doing something? What will they be doing when you're doing direct teaching? You have to provide enough detail so that somebody could walk into your classroom, pick this up, and teach the lesson successfully. And then how are you going to close your lesson? You don't want to just run out of time. You want to make sure the lesson is planned. Then how do you bring closure to that? What will students do to remember this? Will they do more practice with this? Will you have them do an exit slip? Will you have them talk in groups? What's the closure here? Okay, so make sure that's there. And then what homework or independent practice will you give them? All right, if any, you may not. Okay, so this is going to be very, very involved. Maybe up to 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, depending on how many days the lesson is going to take. So you're going to have instructional components for each day. Not some lessons will only take 1 day, so don't get me wrong. I just want to make sure that you're taking into consideration lessons that may take more than that. What accommodations, adaptations, differentiation will you have to make? Okay, so you have to think about assisting students, all students, not just those with IEPs or 504, but what adjustments might you have to make? Okay, how will you address varied learning styles and behaviors? How will you group students for instruction? What will you do for absent students? Okay, so you have to think of all those things as well, and write in here what you anticipate as accommodations, adaptations, and differentiation. Knowing you don't have a class in front of you, and you don't have a list of students with IEPs or 504s, and you don't know who's gifted and talented, and you don't know who misses school a lot, but you make some possibilities here. Okay, so it may be that for absent students, the lesson will be recorded and available to them on a website. Okay, or that there will be a flipped lesson, video created for those students who are absent. Or there may be a list of materials where they can get the info, get this work. Whatever it is, just address this. Okay. If you know some accommodations you might have to make, you can add those as well. Same with adaptations. And then because you are being held to main Common Core teaching standards, this is about you now, not about the student. This is about you and those standards that apply to your teaching. Okay, so although most all standards may occur in the implementation of a lesson, you need to click the ones that are most clearly evident, okay? So for instance, I'm going to look at the ISTE standards here, that you are facilitating and inspiring student learning, designing and developing digital age learning experiences. Clearly, if it's a lesson on storytelling, you're doing that. But you also may be creating a safe and equal learning environment, depending on what's happening in this particular lesson. You may be demonstrating content knowledge, you may be demonstrating planning for instruction, but you'll have to go look at those standards carefully, not just the broad standards here, but all the indicators, to see which ones most closely match what you're doing here. So this is the lesson plan lesson template that we're going to be using. And go ahead and look at the other one as well. I'm not going to pull that one up because I think this 10 minutes of talking about this is enough. And read the narrative that helps you with that. And then there's a sample instructional plan that will help you out, okay? And you will see, when you look at it, you'll notice what the detail is that I'm expecting you to do, okay? And it'll show this one. This is not about technology, but it still will give you an idea of what I'm expecting to see from you for a lesson plan, okay? And again, if you're doing this lesson over a period of days, make sure that there's an instructional plan for each day, okay? So that's it. We'll be talking to you soon.